So hey guys, welcome to my number 11 list for 2014 film year. And what the number 11 list is, for those who didn't see my video for this when I did this for the 2013 film year, a number 11 list is when you talk about some films that you really enjoyed for that film year, but they didn't quite make your top 10 list. And so I'm doing that here now for the 2014 film year, since I've seen a good majority of those films for that year that, the year that just passed us, that I feel like I've seen the ones that I really wanted to see, and that I've seen enough where I can tell what was the best and the worst, and the films that I really enjoy, but they didn't quite make the best of the year list. So I'm going to talk about some films here that I really enjoyed throughout 2014, but once again they didn't quite make the top 10 list. There was something about these films that weren't quite top 10 quality, or if they were going to make the list but they ended up not doing it in the last minute. I'll explain why here in the video here, but without going too overboard with some of these, because I do have a lot of films to tell you about that I don't really have quite enough time for to go into deep details on. All these films I have reviews on here on my channel, so if you want to see the actual reviews of these films, they are there on my channel somewhere, so feel free to look around. These movie reviews are here on my channel somewhere for you. So the first film I have on the list here is Muppets Most Wanted. Really good film, not quite a top 10 list quality film though. Great musical numbers. It was great seeing the Muppets again. It was we saw them last in 2011 with the Muppets, but I really felt like this is for the most part an improvement over the 2011 film. I just thought it was a better plot, a little bit more of a clever film overall. So pretty fun film, not quite top 10 quality. The next film I had on the list too was Nonstop. Very good Liam Neeson thriller. I can't wait for Run All Night, which will be the same director as this film. But Nonstop, it was a great film. It was well executed. It was well acted. But it was kind of, I felt like I've seen it before. It was one of those kind of films. So that's one of the reasons why it wasn't quite like a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10 kind of quality film, just because we've seen this kind of stuff before and whatever. So good film, but not quite top 10 list quality. Next film I have on my list is Labor Day. I actually got around to seeing this again recently, and I am reminded that this was a pretty good film. Jason Reitman, he's a very good director. He's the son of Ivan Reitman, who's done Ghostbusters. Both of them know how to direct a really good movie. I thought Labor Day was kind of underlooked. It was a really good movie. Really had a lot to say about, we really don't know people until we really get to know them. It definitely had that kind of premise to it. Definitely an underlooked film. I think Kate Winslet and Josh Brolin and Gatlin Griffith, I think his name was, all gave great performances. Really great underlooked film. So if you get a chance to see it at Redbox someday, please do so. But at the same time, it's not quite Jason Reitman's best film, but it's still a very good film. So really good film. The next film I have on here is The Signal. It was more of a smaller release. I think only one theater in my area actually got this movie, and then all of a sudden it reached Blu-ray and DVD shortly after that. So it didn't have quite that big of a release. I think it came out in the summer at some point, actually. Pretty good film. It had Lawrence Fishburne in it. Pretty good science fiction film. It doesn't quite add up in the end, though, which is kind of one of my downfalls with it, but really good independent science fiction film. So if you like that kind of stuff, you might want to check out The Signal at Redbox someday. The next film is Jersey Boys. I know a lot of people hated this film, but I thought it was a very good Clint Eastwood film for the most part. Not his best film. He hasn't really made an extraordinary film in a really long time. And for those who saw my American Sniper review recently, you obviously know how I felt about that movie. But good film. I liked it. Not a fantastic film, but I liked it. So it was really good. I liked it for what it was. It depicted the what was the band's name? Frankie Valli and his band, the Four Seasons really well. But yeah, good film, just not, extraordinary. Then the next film I have on here is Begin Again. Really good film. Definitely a film, though, where I really can't see myself watching it several more times over again. It doesn't quite have that good replay value, but Keira Knightley and Mark Ruffalo and Haley Steinfeld, I think, was in this too. All gave great performances here. I think Catherine Keener had a small role in it too. Really good film. If you like music, if you like, film depictions of the music industry and how it's a very difficult place to be in. Very good film. So Begin Again's a good film, but it's not quite a fantastic film. Next one I have is another film that got a lot of negativity around the time it came out, but I actually ended up liking it better than I thought I was going to, and that's The Purge Anarchy. Pretty good film. I like the concept of The Purge. I think it's a very scary premise, which I think definitely works to its advantage here for this film. But, once again, not quite a fantastic film, but I remember really enjoying it quite a bit, though. Then the next film I have was Maleficent, which was another really good film. Angelina Jolie definitely gave a terrific performance here. Definitely a great use of visual effects. Definitely had a better storyline than I thought it was going to have, because mostly when these films have good visuals like this, usually the storyline doesn't quite live up to that. This film I thought did a pretty good job, maintaining all that stuff. And I think at one point I even had this potentially be on my top 10 list. It obviously didn't make it there, but still a very good film. So if you like Angelina Jolie, if you like Sleeping Beauty, it's worth checking out. The next film is actually a documentary. It's called Video Games the Movie. Very well made film, very interesting film. My biggest problem with Video Games the Movie, though, is it's probably going to be outdated in the next few years. The video game industry is always changing. And unfortunately, it's one of those films where if you don't see it right away, it'll probably be outdated by possibly the next 2 or 3 years, just because it is a very fast moving industry and it's cool to see where we're currently at with it, but the movie itself will probably be outdated in the next couple of years, which will probably work against it in reality. So, pretty good film, but obviously that negative aspect is going against it. The next film I have is Chef. Very good Jon Favreau film. I even considered this to go on my top 10 at one point, but it didn't quite make it there. Just really well done film. It definitely got me into culinary arts for what the film was trying to do, and it definitely had a lot to say about how the food industry works and things like that. And Jon Favreau gave a terrific performance, great writing. He definitely had a great cast working with him in this film. So huge thumbs up to Chef, but once again, didn't quite make my top 10 list. The next film was actually a film I was really looking forward to, and it ended up just being good but not great. It definitely had a very generic Hollywoodized ending, which I think definitely worked against it in the end. But it was called What If. It had Daniel Radcliffe and Zoe Kazan for one of my all-time favorite films, which was Ruby Sparks. They were both in it. Very good movie. Very interesting concept. About what's a friend and what's a girlfriend and what's a boyfriend and all that kind of stuff. But it was one of those films where I ended up liking the concept better than the film itself. So that's one reason why it probably didn't make my top 10 list. The next film is actually on my top 10 list for a while, and then at the last minute, it really did kind of make it on there. And that's Enemy. Very good film. It definitely makes you think a lot. It's one of those films where it gives you all the puzzle pieces, but you have to put it together for yourself by the time the film is over. It will not tell you all the answers. You have to come up with them yourself. And a lot of people are still to this day trying to figure out what exactly Enemy is about. And that's one of the interesting things about it to me, too. So, huge thumbs up. Didn't quite make my top 10 list. This next film was actually one of my most anticipated films of 2014. And unfortunately, it didn't make the top 10 list. And it was very, very close. But at the last minute, there was just 10 other films I thought that topped this one. And I'm really sorry to say that Guardians of the Galaxy is this movie. Really great film. I love this film. I'm definitely going to rewatch it several more times in the next few years. But there was just something about it that wasn't quite as good as the 10 films I chose. So sorry for those who really wanted that film to make my top 10. But there was just certain aspects of ours is like, this could have been better. Then the next film I have is actually Nightcrawler. Terrific film, don't get me wrong. Jake Gyllenhaal gave a terrific performance. Definitely a great American Psycho kind of vibe to it. But there was just certain things about it, like character development and things like that I think the film could have been better with, which is ultimately what didn't make it to the top 10. The next one was actually is nominated for Best Picture right now too. Terrific film, don't get me wrong. Michael Keaton was great in this film, but once again, not quite a top 10 list film for me, and that's Birdman. Really well made film, definitely a very unique film. A very, definitely has a lot to say about the things that it's covering in it, but not quite a top 10 list quality movie. The next one was actually Life Itself. It was a documentary about Roger Ebert. This was actually originally going to be in my top 10 list, but I decided not to use it for the simple reason that this film and Video Games the Movie were really the only two documentaries I saw. So I really didn't get to see a lot of documentaries in 2014, so I thought it would have been kind of weird if I just had one on there and then, didn't use any other ones. So and also, I'm more of a feature length film kind of guy over documentaries. But don't get me wrong, Life Itself, I'm definitely going to own it. Probably going to rewatch it several more times. Definitely shows the brilliance behind Roger Ebert. But like I said, I have a weird reason for why this didn't make the top 10 list. Definitely check this film out. But like I said, there's certain small little things about it where it's like, okay, that's not quite a top 10 list quality movie. Then the next film I knew for sure was not going to make my top 10 list, but it's still a very great movie that I think everybody should check out at least once. And that's Big Hero 6 by Disney. It's an adaptation of a Marvel comic that not a lot of people know about, but very good film, pretty fun film to watch. But I really can't see myself rewatching this several more times, even though the voice cast and the Baymax character are both really fun in this. So, good film, not quite a top 10 list quality film. The next film, which is also the second to last film on this list, is The Theory of Everything. Very good film. Eddie Redmayne, I think, for sure should win Best Actor for this movie. He definitely knocked it out of the park. He really did look and feel like Stephen Hawking's in this movie. Very good film, but I think the overall film itself had some little small flaws with it that wasn't quite top 10 quality. Definitely, certain aspects of Stephen Hawking's I think they could have dived into more. But as far as Eddie Redmayne's performance goes, I think that's what ultimately made this an Oscar-worthy movie. We know why it's getting a lot of Oscar buzz. Very good film. Eddie Redmayne, please win an Oscar. You definitely deserve it for this movie. But the overall film itself was very good, but it doesn't quite live up to Redmayne's performance, which I think is ultimately what made it to this list and not my top 10 list. Then the last film was actually going to be on my top 10 list until the film that made it to number 10 replaced it, and that is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Very good film. I really wanted to be on my top 10 list, but I just couldn't. There was just 10 other films I saw in 2014 that I feel were better films overall. And don't get me wrong, Andy Serkis I think was definitely robbed of an Oscar nomination. I think he definitely deserved one, and it's really too bad the Film Academy didn't give him one. Definitely the best motion capture actor, the best voice actor, just very talented man, and very good script too. By the way, for this film, definitely one of the better Planet of the Apes films we've gotten in a long time. But there was 10 films I saw that were better, and I think that's, like I said, I really wanted that film to go to my top 10 list, but I saw 10 films that were better, so it's not a top 11 list, it's a top 10 list, and that's why it's not on here. So hope you guys enjoyed these films as well. I'll definitely be back here for my top 10 list, which I'm about to post here hopefully pretty soon after this video. It's important to note too that I actually didn't get around to seeing Whiplash or Selma. So for those who are hoping to hear my opinion on either one of those films, haven't seen it yet. Hopefully in the near future I'll be able to watch those at some point. But unfortunately I can't factor those into any of these lists just because I haven't seen either one of those films yet. And I know they're getting a ton of buzz right now, specifically with the Oscars. But for those who saw these films I just talked about here, hopefully you like these films as well. And I'll be back here soon for my top 10 best of the year and the films that I enjoyed the most in the 2014 film year.